He told me not to go into that room. Dad had just died, and I swear I saw Thomas shove something into the safe. They say family is supposed to protect you, love you, stand by you. But what if the people meant to shield you are the ones who quietly sharpen the knife? My father, Richard Bennett, died on a rainy Tuesday in April. The sky was gray, the kind of heavy gray that sticks to your skin. A truck ran a red light on Route 57 and crushed the passenger side of his Buick. They told me it was quick. He likely didn't feel a thing. But I felt everything. He was the only anchor I had left. At 29, I had built my entire world around him. I stayed in our quiet Indiana town while my older brother, Thomas, left for law school in Chicago and never looked back. I worked from home, kept the garden alive, and, over the last 2 years, became Dad's caretaker when his heart condition worsened. I never thought I'd outlive him this soon. What surprised me most wasn't the grief. It was the absence of it. Like someone had turned down the volume inside me. Instead, something darker crept in. Suspicion. It started 3 days after the funeral. I'd returned early from a grocery run and heard movement upstairs, where no one was supposed to be. When I peeked into the hallway, I saw Thomas stepping out of Dad's study. The one with the heavy oak door that had always remained locked. In his hand was a key. He slipped something into his jacket pocket and froze when he saw me. "What are you doing in there?" I asked. "Just paperwork," he said smoothly. "Lawyer stuff. You know, Dad never let anyone in that room." He raised an eyebrow, then gave me a tight smile. "Well, Dad's not here anymore, Jules." That line stung. Not just for the words, but for the way he said them, like a quiet victory. Like the house was already his. Later that night, I stood in front of that door alone, my fingers brushing against the grain of the wood. Dad once told me when I was 16, some truths belong behind oak doors, until you're ready. Back then, I thought he was just being poetic. But now? I remembered something else, one night during the winter before his death. We were watching a rerun of Matlock, and he turned to me, serious. "If anything ever happens to me," he said, "there's a key. Top drawer of my dresser, hidden in the lining." At the time, I rolled my eyes. "You're not dying, Dad." He smiled. "Still. Trust your gut. Especially when it comes to your brother." That was the only time he ever said something like that aloud. Thomas and I, we weren't always like this. I used to follow him around when I was little. He built treehouses and gave me rides in the wheelbarrow like he was some kind of superhero. But something shifted when Mom died. He started shutting doors between us. Emotional ones. And now? Now he was shutting real ones. That night, I found the key exactly where Dad said it would be. Brass, old-fashioned, heavy in my palm. I didn't sleep. I waited for the house to go still. Waited for my gut to be louder than my fear. When the clock struck 2 a.m., I unlocked the oak door and stepped inside. The room smelled like time. Dust clung to the leather-bound books and the thick curtains. Dad's study hadn't changed in 20 years, dark cherrywood desk, faded family portraits, an antique globe that still showed the USSR. His armchair sat in the corner, bathed in moonlight from the stained glass window above. And there, on the wall, was the painting, Lake Michigan at Dusk. He told me once it was where he proposed to Mom. But I'd always suspected it was hiding something more. I pulled it aside and found the safe. Still locked. Digital keypad. 4 digits. I tried the obvious, birthdays, anniversaries. Nothing worked. I didn't need to get in, not yet. My gut told me what I needed wouldn't be in the safe, it would be in the open. I turned to his desk. The top drawer was jammed. I wedged it open carefully with a letter opener, and a thin journal slid out, worn at the edges. Private do not destroy, scribbled in his sharp, fading hand. My heart thudded as I opened it. At first, it was normal, daily observations, medical complaints, thoughts about aging. But halfway through, his tone shifted. I've noticed Thomas bringing me papers to sign without explaining them. He keeps saying it's just for insurance or updating legal stuff. But I forget things now. I'm scared I already signed something I shouldn't have. He waits until Julia's out. Tries to keep her away. I don't know if I'm paranoid or dying. Or both. And then, tucked between the last pages, an envelope. To whom it may concern in case anything happens to me. Inside was a typed letter. It warned of possible manipulation, requested a handwriting verification in the event of a legal dispute, and mentioned a name I'd never heard before, Mr. Harlan Beckett. An attorney. I flipped to the last page of the journal. There, in shaky handwriting, Dad wrote, "The will I signed with Beckett was fair. I'm not sure the other one was real. But if Julia finds this, she'll know what to do." My hands were trembling. I searched Harlan Beckett on my phone and found him, retired attorney, 2 hours away. His firm had handled estate planning for families for over 40 years. I called. He answered on the second ring. I barely got the words out. "This is Julia Bennett." "My father was Richard, I know," he said, quietly. "I've been waiting for this call." Just like that, the knot in my chest twisted tighter. I wasn't grieving. I was unraveling something deliberate. Something dark. And I wasn't about to stop. I met Mr. Beckett in person 2 days later. His office looked nothing like the modern law firms you'd find downtown. It was in an old converted Victorian home just off the square in a sleepy little town that hadn't changed since the 80s. The waiting room smelled faintly of pipe smoke and lemon polish. He greeted me at the door with a slow, knowing nod. "You look tired, Julia," he said gently. "Like someone who's holding the whole world together with her bare hands." "I'm starting to think I am," I replied. He led me to a small conference room and sat across from me with a manila folder already waiting on the table. "Before we begin," he said, "let me tell you something. Your father was sharp as a tack when he came to see me. He was cautious. Protective of you. That's why he insisted on using me instead of the firm your brother recommended." He opened the folder and slid a document across to me. It was a will, dated 10 months earlier. My name was on it. Half the house. Half the land. A note about preservation and shared control. Equal. Fair. Not a trace of the cruel, one-sided version that had been read after the funeral. "I have to ask," I said quietly. "Why didn't you come forward?" "I tried," he replied. "After your father called me, concerned, I drove to the house. But Thomas answered the door. Said Richard was resting. Said not to come back." My stomach dropped. I showed him the journal, the letter, and told him everything, about the locked study, the safe, the night Thomas thought I wasn't home. Beckett nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing. "We can't accuse him outright without proof." "But this?" He tapped the journal. "This is something." That night, I pulled the most recent will, the one Thomas filed, from the copy I'd taken during the reading. I scanned both versions and sent them to a forensic handwriting expert along with samples of Dad's old letters and birthday cards he'd written me over the years. The analyst promised results in 5 days. But I couldn't wait that long. Because I knew my brother. And I knew the look he gave me at the funeral, the one that wasn't grief. It was relief. So I set a trap. I invited Thomas to coffee the next day. A small cafe. Public. Neutral. He arrived late, crisp as ever in a blazer too expensive for small-town Indiana, and sunglasses he wore even indoors. You wanted to talk, he said, sliding into the seat opposite me. I just want to understand, I said. Dad never mentioned changing the will. Not once. Thomas sighed. Because he didn't want to hurt you. Look, Julia, Dad was grateful for your help, sure. But he knew you weren't going to do anything with the house. You're stuck. I kept my expression calm, but inside, my heart burned. And you think that justifies lying to me? I didn't lie, he said smoothly. He signed it. I didn't hold a gun to his head. No, but you waited until I was gone. You isolated him. You took advantage. He leaned in. You think anyone's going to care? You have no proof. And even if you did, good luck. Courts don't overturn wills on hunches and hurt feelings. I wanted to scream. But instead, I smiled. Because my phone, tucked in my coat pocket, was recording everything. You know, he added casually, he didn't even read the final documents. Just signed where I told him. I had to hold the pen for him at one point. He laughed. Laughed. That was the moment I knew. There was no brother left in him. Only hunger. 3 days later, the handwriting analysis came back. The signature on the submitted will showed telltale signs of tremor simulation, fake to appear shaky, but unnatural. There were inconsistencies in the baseline alignment and hesitation marks. In short, forged. Beckett filed an emergency motion to the probate court. We submitted the journal, the forensic report, the audio recording. The judge froze the estate immediately and scheduled a hearing. But that wasn't the end. I remembered the cameras. Dad had installed outdoor security cameras after a break-in scare the year before. I logged into the cloud backup account and combed through hours of footage from the days after the funeral. And there he was. Thomas, at 3:14 a.m., dragging a cardboard box from the study door to the backyard burn barrel, lighting a match, and watching it all go up in smoke. I downloaded the footage and sent it straight to Beckett. The case wasn't just about a stolen inheritance anymore. It was about a man who burned his father's trust and thought he'd never get caught. The courtroom didn't look like a battlefield. But it felt like one. Hard benches. Quiet murmurs. The thick tension of air just before a storm breaks. The judge read through both wills, the report, the audio transcript, and watched the video footage twice. Then she looked at Thomas. I have seen many cases of estate manipulation. But rarely have I seen one so deliberate. So cold. Mr. Bennett, you are being referred for criminal investigation under forgery, elder abuse, and destruction of estate documents. Thomas didn't flinch. But his jaw tightened, his mask cracking. The judge turned to me. As for you, Ms. Bennett, the original will, witnessed and signed under proper conditions, will be reinstated. I should have felt victorious. But I didn't. Because the price of justice wasn't a trophy. It was the confirmation that your own brother had betrayed your father in his final days. Thomas was sentenced to 2 years in minimum security. The deal included financial restitution and a permanent disbarment from managing or profiting from any estate he did not fully own. I never visited. Not out of hate, but because I had nothing left to say. 1 week later, I stood alone in the house. My name was now on the deed. The silence in the rooms was thicker now, less oppressive, more sacred. I walked into the study for the last time. I opened the safe. Inside were old bank statements, my birth certificate, and one last envelope. Julia, if you're reading this, then things must have gone worse than I hoped. I'm sorry. I always wanted to believe Thomas could change. I raised you both to be better than this world. But I never doubted you. Not once. Keep the house alive. Not as a memory, but as something living. Something good. Love you always, Dad, I cried for the first time that day. Not because of pain, but because I finally understood. I didn't just inherit a house. I inherited his faith in me. 6 months later, the Bennett house reopened. But not as a private home. It became a community center for seniors, somewhere warm, familiar, filled with life. The kind of place Dad would have loved. There's a reading nook in the corner with his old armchair, and on the wall above it, a plaque, in honor of Richard Bennett, a father, a fighter, and a believer in justice. People ask me sometimes if I forgave my brother. I don't know. But I do know this: karma doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it walks in quiet. Like a daughter with a key. Opening the door. And setting things right.